Hello again, everybody. Welcome to Chamber TV, episode number 203. And today, live from the State House, I'm sure you can hear all of the announcements in the background. I think you're having a fire drill, Mr. Secretary?
We hope that is concluded.
Yes, okay. So we never know what we're going to encounter when we start our interviews, but we will roll with the punches, Mr. Secretary. Gregg Amore, 100 days or so in office as our new Secretary of State. Welcome to Chamber TV. Mr. Secretary, how's your day going so far?
So far, so good. Thank you for having me, Laurie. I appreciate it. Other than our fire alarm status here, we're having a good day. And we're off to a good start, I think, in our first few months in office.
Well, I was very proud and privileged to be able to serve a minor role on your transition committee back in December/January in the early days of you taking office. So give us, fast forward, give us an update on how your first 100 days has been going, some of the major things that you've been working on.
Sure. Thanks. So, the first thing I want to say is that, I inherited an incredibly talented and professional staff here at the Department of State, especially in business services, where, we had folks come in from out of state, 7 different states, visited the business services division last week to kind of watch how our operations work because we are on the, cutting edge and front edge of customer service. And so, I'm very fortunate that Secretary Gorbea had established a really incredible staff there. And I think we've done a good job of bringing in new folks to enhance that staff and make sure that we're ready to serve the people of Rhode Island. And Laurie, that the business services division is the bulk of the division. We have 52 employees, but most of those employees work in business services and deal with our businesses on a day-to-day basis. And so one of the things that I talked about during the campaign and that you discussed with us during the transition was making sure that we are serving our business community by listening to them and making adjustments after we hear from them as to what we can do better and how we can serve them better. And we are committed and we continue to improve our Rhode Island Business Data Hub, which serves as kind of an informational one-stop shop for folks who are trying to explore the business landscape and see what expansion may look like and get some data to help them make decisions. We're committed to partnering with groups like SCORE, the Service Corps of Retired Executives, and we have given them office space at West River Avenue to deal with and counsel and mentor businesses who are making big decisions to expand or even making decisions to get into business. And then we've also expanded our workshops for startups so that when someone is exploring opening a new business in Rhode Island, they have a myriad of options in our workshops that they can go on to listen, hear from our experts, hear from people in the field, and get questions answered so that they're ready to go when they finally make that incredibly important decision to begin a business. So on that side of things, I think we're moving in the right direction, and we're preparing for next year's budget, and we hope to upgrade our business services platform. That's something that's a priority. As you know, we talked about that during the transition. And then on the other side of things, we're working really hard in civic engagement. I've been to 7 different civics classes around the state where I give a lesson on voting rights and how to get involved in your community and what it means to preserve our democracy. And we have expanded the civic engagement division here so that we are in the community at schools. I will speak to whoever invites me and talk about how the voting system works, how it's so important for people to get involved in their democracy, and really to shore up confidence in a voting system that has been maligned with misinformation across the country. And I'll take this opportunity right now because I know your viewers are the folks that I want to appeal to here. We have had a great exodus from elections workers, both professional elections workers and the people that work at the polls on election day. And we have an initiative here at the Department of State where we're trying to make sure that we have those polls manned. And we're asking businesses if they are able to, if they're in a position to offer an employee a paid day off or some comp time, to use comp so that they can work the polls on election day, and shore up our democratic process. I think it's incredibly important that our citizens understand how important that process is, and that it's just their neighbors, their friends, their colleagues who are working those polls. These are not partisan people. These are not people with agendas. These are people who are making our system work, and we're asking both our students, collegiate and high school, and our businesses to contribute to that pool of workers who will man the polls on election day and really do their country a great service.
That's an amazing roundup of your first 100 days, really important initiatives that you are embracing and moving forward. Just a couple of reactions. First, I think it's really gracious of you to tip your hat to Secretary Gorbea for the work that she did as your predecessor in the Business Services Division. She was very proud of that work, and not often do you see elected officials take a moment and reflect and appreciate the work of their predecessors, because not everything in government is always broken, right? So I think that's what you were saying, that you inherited a truly functional, state of the art business services division where other states are coming in and actually want to learn from us, right?
Yeah, we're proud of that. And I say often in public comments that Secretary Gorbea allowed me to do the things that I want to do because she did such a good job in those areas. So we've been able to focus on civic education and expand that, and start talking about building an archives and museum for our state, because Secretary Gorbea put in place a foundation that really allows me to kind of explore other opportunities for the Department of State.
Excellent. And so, building on that, the concept of inviting SCORE, which is the Service Corps of Retired Executives, into the Business Services Division, your West River location, that strikes me as a fabulous idea, because you can never provide too much information and really experiential learning. And there are so many people that are having this idea of starting a business, launching a business. Particularly as the digital revolution really kicks in. There are lots of ways to make money in this world, aside from, perhaps what we once knew when we were growing up. So taking people through the process, journey mapping it in a way that is inclusive to lots of populations and meeting them where they're at, strikes me as a really terrific idea too.
And we're trying to do this so it fits into folks' schedules, right? So we not only hold the workshops post work day or traditional work day, but we also record those, and they're accessible to anybody who wants to view them. We just recently did a workshop with the Rhode Island Black Business Association. We're working closely with the Small Business Association, and we're going to expand those workshops where we see the need. The other amazing thing is how many folks are coming in to these workshops, both in real time and after the fact. We did a program on turning your hobby into a business. It was incredibly well received. The information is there. Our senior staff are running the programs. And then, aside from all that, Laurie, you can always contact us by phone, in person at West River, or at sos.ri.gov. And you can talk to someone really quickly. One of the reasons that the folks from out of state came in to explore our business services division is because of the immediate responsiveness of the staff and our system. We are getting back to people within 24 hours, most times well before 24 hours, whether it be email, direct contact, or in person.
That's really amazing. That's a great track record, and one that is truly appreciated by the business community. During one of our transition sessions, you demoed the data hub functionality that lives on the Secretary of State's website. And I'm guessing not a lot of people are incredibly familiar with the data hub and the rich amount of information that it contains. Do you want to just say a few words about what that offers to the average business professional that may be looking for marketing leads, as an example?
Sure. I think the most important thing is it gives a great overlay of the business landscape in the state. And the data hub is interactive. So if you're paring down and you want to look at a specific business in a specific area, whether it be geographic or otherwise, you can do so and get a real taste of what the business environment looks like. You can see certainly who's in that field and where they're located and what they're doing. And I think this is something that we can continue to improve upon as we go forward. But even in my time in government service, which is 11 years now as a member of the House of Representatives and now as Secretary of State, I have seen the Secretary of State's website improve consistently, and certainly the business data hub is at the forefront of that improvement. And it has improved, and I'm proud to say it's improved since we took office as well. And basically, what we're looking for is anything that can help a business determine what their path forward is, and we'll include that in the data hub. And we have really solid professionals working to kind of sift through that data and present it in a way that's really comfortable for anyone to look at and get a sense of what direction they may want to go in. So I appreciate the opportunity to push that and promote the business data hub, because it's an important part of that entire business services platform.
Yeah, it sure is. And market research is incredibly important to anybody that's looking to expand and grow their business. Also, trying to identify and sort through places where one might look for talent. You can find it all there on the Secretary of State's website. So congratulations to you for continuing to make those improvements, because again, information is so helpful as one begins this very complicated journey, which we hope it won't be, of starting, growing, launching, refining, pivoting a business. Right.
And the other thing I want to point out, Laurie, is that we're very happy to serve as well as a conduit to other government agencies and departments, and we will help businesses make that connection. In some cases, very personally, make that connection to let's say it be DOH or the Division of Taxation, so that we can help businesses get to where they're going. And so, one of the initiatives that we are really leaning into is that notion of the Department of State as a conduit to the other front-facing agencies that work with businesses, and our ability to help folks. And just recently, we're talking about licensure, and that can be a complex process, and we want to be helpful in that process and any other process with the other government agencies. And so we're very intentional about making sure that we serve in that capacity.
Fantastic. So moving along to some of the other points that you are making that strike me as right on target. The notion of civics education, voting, the importance of our democracy. You mentioned you've already taught several classes, and I have to point out that you are a classroom teacher by professional training. How many years have you spent in the classroom, Mr. Secretary, in East Providence as a teacher?
Yeah, so I was a full-time civics and U.S. history teacher for 27 years, and then a part-time one, as well as an athletic administrator for the next 6+ years. So yeah, I have to earn my retirement, Laurie, so I'm going back and teaching those classes. It's a natural thing for me to do, but it's incredibly important. We've developed a really good lesson on voting rights and voting rights expansion and what that means, and we're bringing that into classrooms. And these are not assembly auditorium situations where we're talking to an entire school. We're actually going into civics classes. We have a lesson prep. We have questions around that, essential questions around that lesson. And we've been incredibly well received, and we're booked out through the end of this school year and into next. And so it's been a joy. And one of the things that it's helped me understand is that we have the next generation of leaders whether they be business leaders, whether they be government leaders, leaders in any field you can think of, in our classrooms, ready to contribute, ready to be good citizens. And we don't talk about that much anymore. The idea of what a good citizen is, and that's a lowercase c, good citizen, and that's someone who contributes in some way to their community, and that could be as simple as volunteering to coach a little league team, or as complex as being involved in government in one way or another, or volunteerism to try to help your community. And this is a way to talk about that to young people, and also talk about the idea that they can access government. And so this is a good segue for me into our student liaison program, which we've developed. Each school, and these are public schools, private schools, charter schools, has the opportunity to offer student liaisons to the Department of State to help them in their efforts in community volunteerism, in voter registration, in any type of community involvement they want to start in their schools. We have a faculty member as well, and we'll serve them through our archives and our library in curriculum support. And then we think what will come to fruition from this is a program called Project Insight that the Department of State will run, where we'll bring in students from every school district so that they're interacting with their government over a 3-day span, where they immerse themselves in state government. They go to the courts, they come here to the State House, they talk to folks like you, Laurie, from the chamber, to let them know what government looks like, what government interaction looks like, and how they can start their path if they're interested into any one of these areas. And Project Insight existed in the late 1970s and early 80s, and many of the current leaders of my age group went through that program, and it opened their eyes up to, and their minds up to, the idea of public service and how government works. And we plan to kick that pilot program off next spring and bring 75, 80 students here to Providence in a 2.5-day program to immerse them in state government.
You mentioned Project Insight, and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, that rings a bell. I remember that. And I have some very close friends who back in the 70s did, in fact, go through Project Insight. They ended up by getting married, and they are now serving in various community support and government positions. So it works. You're bringing it back. You're going into classrooms and delivering information that is credible, that is nonpartisan. It's experiential. What just curious. What are your impressions about where we are as, I'll say, I won't say necessarily as a nation, but let's narrow it down to a state. Where are we in terms of our understanding of our fundamental liberties and democracies? Do you is there anything that jumps out at you that you find especially surprising, either on the challenged end or on the fully embracing end? What's your take on that?
Sure. I'm proud to have sponsored the Civic Literacy Act here in the House of Representatives, and it's been being implemented as we speak, which mandates that every student in Rhode Island between grades 8 and 12 have at least one semester of civics, and that they prove proficiency through a project where they have to interact with either a local, state, or federal government. And so that's a piece of it. But we look at surveys, and we look at the Civic Health Index, which is kind of a new measurement of where people are. And I'll be frank, it's disappointing to me anyway, as a history and civics teacher, that so many folks are really either misinformed or uninformed as to how the process works. And so this is not an easy effort to kind of educate people in the minutia of the process, but on a broader level, which you spoke about, the concept of American liberty, the concept of the three branches of government interacting and there being checks and balances, that's incredibly important. And I think we can do that in the schools, but we can also do that, in many other ways and in many other forums. I think the thing that leads all of this, and the thing that turns people off to government, is incivility. And I have been preaching, for lack of a better term, a return to civility. our discussions around issues need to be based on facts, legitimate positions, and treating one another with respect. I said in my inaugural remarks that, we've gotten to a point where we look at our political opponents as enemies rather than political opponents. And they are our fellow countrymen, our fellow Rhode Islanders, our fellow citizens, and we need to treat them as such. We can have fierce disagreement and still have a legitimate and civil and passionate debate about issues. And if we don't return to that, we are turning people off to the processes of government and turning people off to trying to get involved in government. And I think that's the base level of all of this. We need to return to civility. I think, in my own experience here in the Rhode Island General Assembly, Rhode Island does not mirror the country. For the most part, the debate here has been incredibly civil, but we can do better. We can do better. And I think, we have to start acknowledging that there are going to be differences. We can have those differences, but we really need to start from a base level of respect and encountering each other in a civil way. And then I think things start to open up from there, and people can start to explore and understand government and have a little more faith in what government can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we talked about at the beginning of our discussion about digital communication, digital business, digital opportunities, the world that's opened up to us as a result of all the various platforms. But I think it's important to point out that these same platforms have a double-edged sword in that a lot of what we're seeing today in terms of polarization, misinformation, and the like is a result of, again, those same platforms where there are narrow audiences and unfiltered information that is shared, where the citizenry, we as citizens, need to be sure to make sure that we continue to apply those skills of knowledge of, the way government does in fact work, and critical thinking and questioning. Is this actually true? And teaching people how to really discern information that is presented to them in lots of different ways. And that truly was, really one of the fundamentals of the First Amendment, was to be able to express opinion, but be able to, have information that is filtered in a way that it presents it in a factual basis, and that we're not relying on the government, as it were, to provide propaganda and the like. So that's a lot to unpack.
Well said. It's well said, though, Laura. That's incredibly well said. We need to get back to what Justice Brandeis called the marketplace of ideas, and let the marketplace of ideas determine where we go in a policy direction, and that has to be done in a way that, as you pointed out, is based on critical thinking, awareness, and responsibility. Right? We as citizens have a responsibility to inform ourselves, to make sure that we are formulating our opinions and arguments based on facts. Facts are facts. John Adams said facts are stubborn things. We can disagree on various policy platforms, but we should be able to find a common ground on what the basic facts are. And I don't think I could say it better than how you just expressed it. We having information and access to information is a great thing, but we have to know how to handle it, right? It's the same with owning a vehicle, right? It's great to have a vehicle so that you can get from point A to point B, but you have to handle that vehicle properly, or you're going to put other folks in danger.
Mm-hmm. The Secretary of State's office back in the 70s might have been a sleepy office, if you will, caretaking, administering the nuts and bolts of government. But today, I would suggest that the Secretary of State's office is charged with one of the most important aspects of our democracy, which is administering a fair election, and that falls squarely within your offices. And today, as a result of the past decade or so of commentary around turnout, around election counting, balloting, etc. What are your thoughts on where we go from here to really ensure that we are reinstilling faith in democracy and credibility and trust in our election system.
Yeah, so part of that is civic engagement, right? Part of that is making sure that folks know how our system works. It takes a while, it's not a short conversation to talk about how we look at and verify signatures on mail ballots, but it's a worthwhile conversation, and I would encourage anybody that's interested to go to the Board of Elections and look at that process, and they'll take you through the entire process, and that builds confidence. And I've spoken about the mail ballot process on many occasions in many different forums. And, I can see the folks I'm talking to kind of having the aha moments as I'm speaking. Oh, I didn't realize that that's how that worked. And I'll give a quick example. When a signature is verified, it comes up on a large screen, and it's matched up with a signature that either from registration or from the DMV, and then the signature on the mail ballot application, and then the signature on the envelope of the ballot. And all four of those signatures are placed on a screen. There's a Republican and a Democrat, or two unaffiliateds who are looking at that, unaffiliated folks who are looking at that screen and determining whether or not those signatures are legitimate. If they flag that ballot as having a signature that they cannot confirm, they'll pull that ballot and try to cure it. So they'll contact the voter, and that voter will have to prove who they are. And that is the process in Rhode Island for our signature verification. And when people hear that, and I did that really quickly, and you can see a broader presentation at the Board of Elections, when people hear that, they feel better about the process. And we are exploring software that will help those signature verifiers look at those signatures, and the software, as it advances, will flag differences in the signatures, and then the humans will always make the decision as to whether or not to pull that ballot and cure it or remove it totally. But the software, as the software improves, we anticipate that we will purchase software that will help that process become even more secure. And I think it's a good time to point out that, according to the Department of Homeland Security and the cybersecurity experts there, the 2020 election, the 2016 election, they were incredibly secure elections, some of the most scrutinized and secure elections in our nation's history. And I think that's important for people to hear. These are scrutinized elections. The eyes, as you mentioned, the Secretary of State's office was a sleepy office, kind of an administrative position. But the eyes of the nation are upon the voting process. And, we need to do our best as government officials to talk about it and also to invest in it. We need to make sure that communities have enough resources to run their elections. It's one of the beautiful parts about American democracy is we don't have a centralized election system. It's very difficult to hack into 50 different state systems with then county systems that are even different than the overall state system. And so that's a great thing, but we need to provide resources both at the federal and state level to make sure that counties and states and localities are able to administer these elections well. I think that's our focus to make sure that we know that this is something to be invested in, and that we share that with the legislature and with our federal delegation. And that has improved recently because elections are now considered to be critical infrastructure in the United States. And so we do get aid from the Department of Homeland Security. And I can tell Rhode Islanders, we're a paper ballot system. Our machines only count. So you do not vote on our machines. They count only. And then we have a backup of that. An image of every ballot is photographed by the machine. And so we have a really good system that then is followed up by a risk limiting audit. And that audit is a hand count of a precinct. And then that is put into a system to reach a 98% accuracy level through the algorithm. And we've done that since 2016, and it has been right on target. So Rhode Islanders need to know that. And I say that wherever I go so that they do know we have an auditing system that is in place. In fact, the Rhode Island risk limiting audit system is considered to be the gold standard in the country. And there's legislation now to expand that audit into more races so that we're looking at General Assembly races and even town council races. So that's something that I think Rhode Islanders can feel good about. We're also working on improving our ballots so that they are unique. and they cannot be replicated. And I don't want to talk more about that, but for obvious reasons. But we are in the process of doing that as well. I think confidence in the American election system is paramount to all things American, including the business environment, the markets. If we have a stable election system and we have folks who lose an election and then come out and say, I lost the election, I did my best, I lost the election, the system is secure, then I think that stabilizes everything, including our business climate, our markets, and just the nation as a whole.
Extremely well said. And with your combination of background in the legislature, as well as your profession as a teacher, a longtime teacher of civics education and American history in the classroom, you possess a perfect combination of sensitivity and knowledge and credibility to be able to lead this office in a way that engenders, again, the confidence that we're looking for. So we have 1 minute left, Mr. Secretary, and there is a big election coming up in the fall. So in the 60 seconds that we have left, tell us the dates and what people need to do in order to prepare for the CD1 election.
So the primary is September 5th, and the only thing special about this election is that it's in an odd year. Everything else is exactly as it has always been in an election cycle. So folks will be able to vote 20 days early. They'll be able to vote by mail. For the first time, they'll be able to request a mail ballot online through the Department of State. That is part of the Let Rhode Island Votes Act that has now been implemented. We're very proud to have implemented that aspect of the bill so that it's even easier for people to access a mail ballot. And the process will look the same. It's a September, November election, and we want to make sure that folks in District 1 know that and participate and make sure that this is a vibrant election. As you know, Laurie, special elections usually have very low turnouts, but this is a federal election, and we want to make sure that we're well represented in Congress, and that is not a partisan statement. That's a patriotic statement. We need to be well represented, and the more people that participate in this process and the more people that come out to vote in both the primary and the general ensures that we're well represented.
So with that, we will let you return to your day, and hopefully things are settling down there at the State House.
As you can hear, it's not as settled as I'd hoped it would be, and I apologize for that, but I hope we had a good discussion nonetheless.
Yeah, this has been great. It's been a fantastic discussion. We covered a lot of really important topics, everything from the nuts and bolts of, business and registration and being able to do so simply to some loftier topics around the future of our democracy. So we truly appreciate your time, and we value the work that you do in your office, and look forward to having you on Chamber TV again when the need arises.
Thank you, Laurie. I appreciate being here.
Have a great day.
You too.